Hi everyone, I've been trying to make this video, but I'm not 100% sure that the guidance that I'm getting in this video will make sense to people who are not yet on the path to awakening and are actually on a path of descension, because people don't realize that for the universe to have balance and not be in a state of disorderly chaos that God didn't intend for anyone to have on earth or any other universal system. If on one part of the universe or one particular place of earth ascension is happening, somewhere else descension is also going to manifest. And people do not understand this journey of descension, and those who actually don't understand the descension journey end up experiencing severe tower moments in their life, because there are or something called as the dark night of the soul, where your soul is going to go through some intense purging. Because if your sole purpose to exist on earth is to bring balance on earth, it's not that everyone will succeed on earth. You have to have balance in order for people. This is the duality of life on earth, that in order for people to have success, if I am having success, the duality is, if people do not get success in the God aligned ways of success and are existing in the 3D aligned way of success, your way of getting success means someone else is getting loss. That is the 3D way. So if you're existing on the old 3D paradigms of existence on earth, your success is going to lead to someone else's loss, and that is the only way balance can be maintained, because you're not aligned, you're not conscious, you're not awakened, you are immature soul, you are a soul who may have ego, you're a soul who might be ignorant about what are the conditions needed to and the cosmic laws that are there in place on earth and in other galaxies in order to balance life everywhere. So, if we are ignorant, which most of us are, because if you are a new soul, you might be ignorant about existence in other galaxies. If we are not simply a new soul, but we are unawakened, and we are unawakened because we have some life purpose and karma to fulfill in our life first. A karma we can't fulfill if we get knowledge about something related to our future or past that might hinder us. For example, in the Mahabharata, when Arjun is told not to think about the fruit of his labor while he is in the war, Krishna had to tell that to Arjun, because if you start worrying that my arrow, when I'm shooting the arrow, it's going to hit my brothers, it might hit my uncle, it might hit my granduncles, it might hit my other cousins. If he starts thinking like that, he can't be focused on doing the job that he has been assigned to do as a warrior. And at that point of time, his job as a warrior was to fight the battle. That's why Arjun is not supposed to know who will die, who will not die, who will survive, who will be injured. All these things related to his feminine aspect, he has to let go temporarily while he is being a warrior in the war. Likewise, if he really had concern, if he had awakened, and Arjun was an unawakened soul. Same way, Arjun's cousins who were there in the opposite side of the war, they were also unawakened. The only difference is while the Kauravas were a lot unawakened. Let's say Kauravas were about 80% unawakened. The Pandavas were, to complement them, 80% more awakened. Now, this ratio I'm giving is a random number. I don't actually know how many in the Pandavas were that much awakened, how many in the Kauravas were that much awakened. And again, the main characters in the story might have been more like if Kauravas were, if not 80, let's say they were 60% awakened, then Pandavas were 40% unawakened. So that is the balance that had to exist between the two sides' main characters who are responsible for the war to occur, in order to have some complementary functionality between them, for them to coexist at the same time on earth, and for them to not only coexist at the same time on earth, but to show each other the mirror where they were going wrong, and where their ignorance or unawareness or unconsciousness was causing misery to the women on earth. And that's why also war happens. When war was happening in the Mahabharata, war is happening because the people who are actually getting crushed in between the ego of men, the unawareness of men, the unawakenedness of men, are the women and children in their lives, and the people under their rule when you are a ruler. That's why the more unawakened a ruler, the more deeply unconscious people are of their responsibilities, the more people ignore the importance of a balanced feminine perspective in their life. That is the time when imbalance occurs on earth, more deep ignorance happens on earth, and war exists. Same thing is again true with the disease, same thing is also true with natural calamities. Anything that disrupts life in a grand scale happens to happen on those parts of earth where people are ignoring the balanced feminine perspectives, balanced masculine feminine perspectives, and are existing more in their distorted masculine or feminine energy. Because what are the let's say some in Mahabharata, what are some of the distorted feminine energy that was present? One distorted feminine energy present was jealousy, like jealousy and fighting about who should rule. If you are truly, if Arjun wanted to be a awakened soul and had awakened his consciousness, not just Arjun but all the Pandavas, if they had truly awakened their consciousness, they could have completely let go of the ruling that they felt they were entitled to, the property that they felt they were entitled to, and completely let go of it to go and rule maybe in the kingdom where any of their wives were children of kings, right? So they had multiple wives, they were all children of kings. Some of these wives may even have been children of those kings who needed, actually, even if they had sons, they might still have needed a co-ruler in their life. So they could have gone and become rulers in a different kingdom. But they were so focused on the parental, patriarchal rights, meaning they were focused on just whatever was brought down to them as an ancestral right, and they didn't think outside the box or think of creating a life that would be a little bit different from what already existed. And though the Pandavas were given a chance again and again when they went into exile, when a lot of cruelty happened to them as a result of the toxic feminine energy of their cousins who didn't like them to be happy, and because they had the jealousy, their toxic feminine traits were higher, they tried to burn away whatever kingdom they had created for themselves, and they tried to create more havoc in the Pandavas' lives. So as a result, Pandavas had to move and go into exile as well for a while. But in all these times, while they were in exile, they could have created something different for their women. They could have created, while they were being very poor or amongst the poor, they could have seen what is the plight of the poor. They could have been assimilating that information. And now when they are unawakened souls, that information that they assimilated in that life will not awaken in their life at that lifetime. So they continued being unawakened. They were not completely unawakened. They probably had some amount of awakening in them, but it was not 100% awakening to their purpose. And because they couldn't awaken to 100% of their purpose and potential, while they were given multiple opportunities to do certain things differently, and remember, most of the Pandavas are actually sons of gods, so they were actually hidden powerful beings who had more power than other earthly beings. And because they had slightly more power than other normal earthly beings, they were a mixture of a earthly mother and a heavenly father, something similar to Jesus also. Jesus was also born of a earthly mother, but his father is heavenly father. So when a person is born like that, who has some extra traits that might help them in bringing some change on earth, they have to awaken to that purpose, but in that lifetime they may not awaken to it fully. And because they couldn't awaken to it fully, they didn't reach their full potential, and hence the wars happened. And in the war, it was not simply that they weren't awakened, they didn't reach their full potential. The other side also was not awakened. They were in fact much less awakened than the Pandavas. Hence, the full potential of highly awakened life that can happen on earth couldn't manifest during that time. And instead, because the genes of higher potential beings were there in the both the population, because Krishna is also a higher avatar of God, so meaning he also has a higher he also came from a family which has the genes of being more powerful than the average human. So those genes were there actually both in Kauravas and Pandavas, because both were by lineage connected to Krishna's family. So which means all this family who fought this battle had a higher potential to do some good on earth, but because they were not manifesting their higher potential, and instead might have been misusing their higher potential. Like, how were they misusing their higher potential? Some of the Kauravas who were higher, who had a long life, or some of the Kauravas who had the more power and physical strength, they were using that strength, or those who were the rulers, they were using each of their social influence, physical influence, body physical health or spiritual health, like related blessings, to do things that were bringing imbalance on earth. The kind of imbalance is which is not actually explored completely in the Mahabharata. We have seen in shorter stories or in the media, because it has been written or depicted by unawakened humans. So when you are unawakened, you will not understand the deeper implications or threads of what was going on in the Mahabharata. Even I didn't understand it when I was a child. When I was a child, like all other unawakened souls, I took Mahabharata as a story of a war, or a little bit of story about love in the elements where love was there, or story about brotherly love, or story about brotherly hatred, right? So that is what, or family politics, this is what you learn when you are unawakened about the Mahabharata. And I have never read the deeper stories of Mahabharata. Like, the only exposure to Mahabharata I have had is via the TV shows, or the clips of TV shows that I haven't watched completely, or the small abridged version of the Mahabharata we had in our school. But as a woman who is now awakened or awakening to what is the role of women in society, now I'm understanding where the women's role has been ignored both in the TV shows as well as in the books. Because when books are written by men, or books are interpreted by men, or stories are abridged now to give the salient features of the stories into a shorter form when it is a larger epic, At that time, whoever is shortening the storyline, they will be shortening it according to their level of awakening and understanding of the story. So if we are not awakened souls, we can't get into the deeper depths of what was going on inside within each of the deeper inner threads of the tale. And while you were existing also in that age when humans mostly weren't awakened, you will again not get the right insight. So someone will get a right insight of something that happened in the Mahabharata, and someone very much awakened will get the complete insight about the Mahabharata only when there is a divine timing for that person to get that enlightenment. And after they have got that enlightenment, their job is then to teach others who can also be, who are also ready to understand these deeper threads of the tale. Then only a teacher will come if the student is present, and if the students are present, teacher is present. And then only and the timeline of earth is ready for expanding into a different way of understanding the past, a different way that is necessary to understand the past in order for a better timeline to exist on earth. That is when awakening starts happening on earth. So that's why awakening exists, or there is a divine timing to the awakening, and people can't push the awakening in those parts of earth or those people or those societal conditions or those countries or those cultures where people are not ready to awaken. And that's why currently on during awakening phase, there is a phase where people are going through dark night of the soul and tower moments. Because say you have built a life with a family who let's say you are part of a family, a joint knit close knit family of some cousins and uncles and all that, and you have a family of maybe 10-20 people. Now in that group of 10-20 family that you are really close to in your life, and your whole life was about your family, but if say out of those 20 people only 2 people are meant to awaken, then the rest of the 18, how much ever you try to reconcile with them, how much ever you try to find a middle ground with them, how much ever you try to create a space where middle ground could be created or a bridge could be created, if you are awakening, if one person has awakened completely and the other person is on the path to awakening, rest of the family are not at all awakened or are not even supposed to awaken in that lifetime, because that would be too painful for them to experience their tower moments, then those people will not awaken. And those people who have already awakened slowly will have to start leaving the family life that they were so accustomed to. So the tower moment was actually going to happen, unfold in both people's lives. Only difference will be the 18 people in the family who are not awakening or are not on the journey to awakening. Their tower moment will be just simply that the 2 family members they were really fond of is leaving them. That is going to be their tower moment. But they will still be cushioned because they have the other 17 people in their family who are still in the same mindset as them. So they are cushioned and they are going to be kept cushioned like that, because their time for awakening hasn't happened. But the other 2, of which one might have partly awakened and might be in the middle of which family do I support, do I go with the 18 people who I have known all my life, or do I follow the one person who I am starting to align with more, that question will start arising. Whereas the one who is fully awakened, they will start realizing that their time to leave their family life has happened, because by then they would have done all the things necessary to see whether they can stay in that family life, whether if they stay with them what will unfold, if they don't stay with them what will unfold. They would have even asked divine intervention to understand this thing if you are completely awakened to. And again, this awakening is in the context of how much awakened you are according to the timeline you are existing on earth. Because again, someone who might be like 80-90% awakened might not still be awakened to the full potential of what can occur on earth, which might not even occur on earth at that time point on earth, because that is not the time point for 100% awakening. For 100% awakening to happen on earth, that person would have to exist another couple of thousand years later, right? So that's why you get only the knowledge, which is what in Christianity also it talks about. You get the fruit of knowledge of good and evil related to your journey on earth, your capacity to understand your role at this particular time point or timeline on earth that you are existing on, and related to your purpose of existence on that timeline of earth. So if someone's purpose of existence was at that time point on earth, they are not supposed to awaken to what is the future of earth, they will not get access to, they should not get access to that information. Unfortunately, if you have indeed got access to an information that you should not have got access to, then what happens? I don't know, but sometimes death can happen, sometimes disasters will happen to end a particular part of earth from learning an information that they were not meant to learn. And they are the people who might have to also descend now, because if you have ascended under false premises, or if you have ascended into a timeline where you are not supposed to get an information because your soul and mind and thoughts and spirit is not yet ready to have access to that information, at that time your descension will also start happening. And this is what I understand about it. I am again not 100% sure about all these concepts, because I am making these videos as I am learning about these concepts. One way to learn something deeply is once you have understood what has been channeled to you, and if you create a video about it or write something about it, at a time what you're doing is you are assimilating a little bit more of that information. Whether you will be able to practice that information again will depend on various other things related to you, your soul purpose, because people also don't realize this, which is also what is true of even things like the Mahabharata, Ramayana, any chants, some priests or Brahmins or people of a higher class, when they have channeled some guidances and thoughts about God or God's life, when people are writing something like poetry or music or epics or tales of gods, at that time what you're channeling is actually sometimes something you can channel inadvertently, even without actually being an awakened soul sometimes, for multiple reasons. Some person could be channeling to write because their purpose was simply meant to be a writer. And at that time, if someone was simply meant to be a writer, doesn't mean that they are a awakened soul to know all the details of what they were writing at that time. They were simply writing something that they were meant to write. Someone else could be a singer, and they could like in the past we have those Sufi saints who used to sing, or baul singers. In baul sangeet is something which is popular in Bengal. So these Sufi saints or baul singers were people, or even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all these different people came in the past because at the time, if they were meant to be simply singers or simply wandering minstrels in different parts of society, or even Sai Baba, when they did all this work, their job was to wander around in different parts of India or different parts of the world, like that. Like these people who I'm talking about from India, those similar kind of people were also existing in other countries. And those were the people who were writing stories, people who were singing, people who were traveling around and mingling with the masses in order to spread some message that they were supposed to spread among them. So everyone has, that's why, a different purpose, different level of awakening when they go through the process of some steps needed to awakening. And in different lifetime, a person will undergo a different experience. So a same soul who might have existed on earth for 10 lifetimes, in one lifetime they might have simply been a king to experience what is the awakening needed in order to be a good king. second lifetime, and they may have learned the lesson, may not have learned the lesson. That is immaterial. They would learn at least part of the lesson, or the experience of that lesson will stay with their soul. Second lifetime, they might have been a middle class person. Third lifetime, they might have been a wandering minstrel. Fourth lifetime, they might have been a writer. Some other lifetime, they might have been a counsel to a minister, or counsel to a king, because they have the past memory of being a king. So like that, different lifetimes we are experiencing different roles, in order that the piece of the puzzle of our soul's existence on our earth starts unfolding slowly for us. So some people might be like a 1,000-piece puzzle, and their story will unfold after thousands of years, possibly thousands or 100 lifetimes on earth, possibly, or 10 lifetimes on earth, possibly. So different people will have different things unfolding for them, which will lead them to understand their soul journey on earth, understand the purpose of their soul journey on earth, and understand the higher reason for their existence on earth at a particular timeline on earth, when earth is meant to awaken to something. That if someone has existed, say, for thousands of years on earth as a soul, and they had 100 years, like that, 10 lifetimes on earth already, at that time, if they are meant to teach something, do something, influence something, have power over something, to teach people something, or distribute some knowledge amongst people, or bring a way of life among people that is necessary in that lifetime, that is when they will awaken to their 100% purpose of that lifetime. But again, as a soul, your 100% awakening will only happen. For the soul's awakening, it might happen maybe 5,000 years later also. So you don't know when you will completely awaken. But you have to always, we all have a potential to awaken to the highest potential of what we can achieve on earth at a particular timeline that we are existing on earth. So if I was an individual who was existing on in 1900s earth, at that time there were many laws that were marital laws that were discriminatory against women, or property right laws that were discriminatory against women. And if you were existing on a country that was ready for awakening at that time towards better laws for women and children, at that time those countries started awakening and changing those laws, right? So initially, when women's law related laws started changing, marriage related laws started changing in those countries where the laws needed to become more balanced, and where the awakening related to those changed laws could happen. And so that's why we had women's movements, women's rights related, certain movements related to voting rights and things like that, that unfolded in the developed countries. Whereas in the developing countries, those rights didn't unfold until a few decades later, and it only unfolded after the developing countries' rulers invaded other countries. So in Asia and in Asian countries, when the Europeans invaded Asia, or invaded South America, or invaded even Africa, or even migrated to Australia, those are the timelines when some of the changes that had happened already in America or Europe started, North America or Europe, those rights then started getting translated into those countries where those rights were not present for women at that time, right? So this is how awakening works. But similarly, there are things that were other, while let's say earthly related things, or property related things, or material life related prosperity was developing in the developed countries like of Europe and North America. In the last century, when the development was going on related to material life, what was going on in the other countries where development related to material life was not going on is that development related to maybe lack of material needs was going on, which means development related to spiritual things could have been going on in these countries, development related to emotional health things could have been going on, development related to social health related paradigms were developing there, because much more mass number of people are living and existing in those countries. So that's why, while development of the material kind is going on somewhere, the development of the other kind might be going on somewhere else on earth. And this is how, in order to balance things on earth, this happens. But when collective awakening has to happen, or when collective changes have to happen in a mass scale, or in a large scale, or in a scale that is necessary for that century, at that time all these things that people have learned in different countries will then start merging, which is what started happening. Like, while development was going on in the beginning of the 1900s, at that time, while people were developing ships to sail, people were developing flights to go, people were developing machines to do certain things easily, all these things were happening there. What was happening in India? Spirituality related things were happening. That's why some Indian spiritual teachers like Vivekananda started traveling and teaching about it globally. Same way, right now in this century, again certain awakening related things are happening globally, where different parts of the globe, or different people in different parts of the globe, have awakened to what are the things that need changing in their system, what are the things that need development. Some people are awakening to physical development related to what new innovations have to happen about our roadways, what new innovation has to happen about airplanes, what new innovation has to happen about trains, what new innovation has to happen about cars, what new innovation has to happen about housing, what new innovation has to happen about schooling, what new innovation has to happen about teaching, what new innovation has to happen about learning, what new innovation has to happen in spiritual practices, in family practices, in law, in justice system. So everyone who is involved in any element, or in farming, in business practices, in healthcare practices, everyone is awakening to what needs to now change in this century. And that's why in the end of last century as well as the beginning of this century, people have it is the turn of the century, it is the turn where again different people are awakening to different things that need to change about spiritual practices and all these different practices. And everyone who has awakened might have awakened to one or two or three of these things that need changing. Now the person who has awakened to 5-10 things changing, they have to be the people who will eventually be in the top ruling or decision making cycle of a country. And if they are not awakening, at least the people who are their ministers, who are their helpers, they have to awaken to what needs shifting and changing and aligning and balancing in their country, in their continent, in their family, in their business practices, in their farming practices, whatever they are going to be a leader of, innovator of, change maker of, shifter of, redirector of. That is what you will awaken to in order to change and slowly start changing those different systems that need to change in order for earth to stay balanced according to this century's needs of earthly life. That's why many practices that were normalized in the past centuries, some of those practices have to break down. And we are also seeing revival of certain, in spirituality at least I've noticed that there are some revival of certain practices that in spirituality or related to religion that is happening again. Why? Because in the last century, at least the later half of the 1900s, there were many things related to religion that were discarded by people, or people forgot about religion, people forgot about God. But anytime change is required, anytime mass scale shifts are required, anytime also a lot of grief related things will unfold for some people, you need God back into our prayers, because when new things are unfolding, many people will get fearful. That's why God is needed to help you understand that whatever you're fearing, while some of the fear might be legitimate fear, some of it has to happen because you're doing a new thing. So when you're doing a new thing, not many people will be pleased with you doing a new thing, so you have to experience that fear. Or when you're doing a new thing, and you have to also experience fear, because you have to have the fear of failure, because when you're doing something new, if you don't do it in as right a way as possible for it to, it can have a lot of harmful repercussions. So that's why also you should have the fear of failure. When you are guiding people about something, again you have to have the fear of doing the things in as right a way as possible, so that many people don't misunderstand you, or many people don't misinterpret what you're doing. If mass scale people misinterpret you, that change can't happen. But if the right number of people interpret and understand exactly what your new innovative teaching is meant to bring on earth, then that change will happen. Like for example, if we had a fear of flying, or people, those who were, when the Wright brothers were experimenting with airplanes, or other people also were experimenting with flying, are there those initial inventors who might have been greatly ridiculed for trying to bring that on earth, or might have been thought as crazy as to why are you competing with a bird, it's a bird's job to fly, not a human's job to fly. But despite that, they were eventually able to bring that innovation on earth. Same way, any kind of, earlier when people used to travel around, they used to only travel around using horses or bullock carts or horse driven carriages. So animals were used for traveling purposes, for drawing our carriages. But later on, when other innovations happened, it happened related to cycling, it happened related to cars, it happened related to trains, all these different modes of transportation that started coming up eventually on earth. They wouldn't have existed if people were not ready for those innovations, and if the need hadn't arisen for people to travel long distances and using something more than animals, because maybe animal cruelty was also present in some of the animals who were used for carrying a load, right? So like that, every time there is some cruelty that is manifesting on earth related to some purpose of something that is going on earth, that has been normalized on earth for a long time but is not sustainable anymore given the current timeline on earth, then those same practices, that when earlier animals were used for drawing carriages, it might not have been cruel, because maybe people, everyone used to have enough resources to own maybe one horse, or people who were to travel owned horses. Not everyone owned horses, only some people owned the horses, so there was not animal cruelty. But then when more and more people wanted to travel, but there were not enough horses to allow them to travel, or not enough people to charter these horse rides as well, then maybe cruelty started happening to the animals. That's how someone who understood the cruelty of animals, who understood the need also, that there is a need for something better to ensue now that more people are traveling, those things led to the other innovations that took people away from animal driven travel, right? So like that is what is unfolding now in this century, or what is meant to unfold in this century. And those things have already started unfolding in those parts of earth where people are ready to accept those innovation and changes, but there are still many parts of earth where people are not yet ready to accept those changes. But if that is, if say the person who first invented the airplane, when they invented the airplane, they may not have had great customers who wanted to fly in their airplane, right? But while initially they may not have had customers who wanted to fly in the airplane, over the 30-40 years of its invention, it eventually got adopted by many people. So same way, whatever is the next turn of the century innovation in some field of work, whatever is unfolding right now on earth, if that thing is not massively approved or massively accepted, doesn't make it the wrong thing, and only time eventually tells when it becomes the right thing, or only time eventually tells when a innovation that was adopted was not a right thing or a balanced thing to occur on earth. So this is how innovations work, and this is innovation is a part of a ascension journey of ascending earth to a more evolved, differently evolved, better evolved way of living. And it is not simply related to, these are all the practical things I'm talking about, because so far humans have only been involved in practical conveniences, practical innovations. But like that, other than practical innovations related to just material things on earth, in this century, ascension, if ascension has to occur, it is not simply related to the practical choices people are making or innovations people have done. Now is the time to do changes related to society, changes related to culture, changes related to balancing things on Mother Earth, changes related to spirituality, all of which can't unfold if people stay stuck in only the changes related to material conveniences. Because right now, actually, material conveniences are overburdening the earth, because people have also not understood how to repurpose things that are not functioning that well. There are so many. I saw a recent article where some flights were cancelled because of bomb threats or other things. What those airlines actually, while they're investigating who gave a bomb threat, need to understand is maybe it's not simply the bomb threat that is the problem in that airline. Maybe what is also the problem in that airline is that the airline's mechanics is not suitable for flying conditions currently, or the flight might be made with like the airplane might be a really old 50-year-old airplane that needs much more deeper maintenance than has been going on currently. So these are the things, and people don't understand this value of obstacle and challenges in their life. That's why when some mass scale disaster also happens, people don't understand either mass scale disaster or a temporary loss or a temporary halt of their normal functionings. When that starts happening to people, most people do not understand the value and purpose of those halts or disasters or crashes. Because what is better? Is it better for a flight to be stopped before it flies and then it goes and crashes somewhere, or is it better that that flight doesn't take off at all, even if it was a false pretense that caused that flight to not take off? Again, what is better if there was another flight where the employees got food poisoning and mass scale employees had to stop, turn in sick? Again, is it better if mass scale employees turn in sick for them to investigate what is going on here, that so many people are falling sick, and ensure that their flights are safe? Because flights have to be operated by humans have to be catered and serviced by the flight personals. So is that a better solution? And you are also carrying humans, right? You are not, if say some company decides that after this disaster that I am going to make a automated flying thing, again there you have to understand that you can make an automated system, you can also create maybe robots to serve your customers. But if robots are doing everything and no real human is managing anything, then the people who are flying also in your flight, they also will eventually have to be robots, only because only a human understands a human's needs. A human is supposed to understand a human's needs. A human is supposed to notify about things, that human conditions that are needed to make a flight hygienic, to make a flight good for healthy for flying also long distances. So humans are actually needed. You can automate everything, but if humans are not present for a service that you're going to give to humans, then you are beating the purpose of the service you are going to provide to them, because artificial humans or robots will not be able to discern when something wrong is going on in a human scale, and something wrong is currently going on in a human scale. And because people have digitized and mechanized and become so dependent on digital things, many doctors, that's why, do not understand when patients have diseases that are complex diseases that can't be detected simply by a machine, or simply by a blood test, or simply by one or two tests. Some people's health problems are more deeper than simply what a machine or a test can detect. And in those cases, many people related to healthcare are not getting the right health benefit that they need from the standardized practices of healthcare. I'm talking about healthcare because I am a healthcare person and I understand this more deeply. And not simply about physical health. Someone's physical health can be ruined by their emotional health status, which could be impacted by if their family life had some problems, if there's hidden abuse were going on, if covert abuse were going on, if long-term abuse were going on. All of those can also lead to physical manifestation of a health symptom, which, while a medicine might treat it superficially, in order to deeply treat that illness, some deeper changes have to happen in healthcare practices. So this is where in this turn of the century, people who are working with medicine, people who are working with therapy, they both might have to merge some practices, learn from each other, collaborate with each other to provide patients a kind of system of healthcare that doesn't currently exist for those patients who have complex life problems going on or complex health issues going on. So like that, in multiple fields of work, where people have actually broken the field of work into different systems, like a physicist does a physicist work, mathematician does a mathematician's work, sociologist does a sociologist's work, doctor does a doctor's work, engineer does a engineer's work. While that system of work, where siloed work of different fields was something necessary in the past to understand that field of work deeply, right now those who have understood any field of work very deeply have to also start collaborating with those who are ancillarily needed for them to do their work in the right way. So a doctor, for example, if he is a doctor who is handling a patient who has some physical health issues, but that physical health issue is not simply from some poison they ate or from some bug they have. If their physical health is related to abuse, the person might also have to work with a cop. If it is related to poisoning, they might also have to work with a poison control center. If it is related to some life circumstances and lifestyle changes that the patient has to make, if it is lifestyle change they have to make, they might also have to collaborate. The patient and the doctor will have to collaborate with a life coach also, possibly. Some people might have to collaborate with a nutritionist. So all these, a good doctor or a high quality doctor or a high quality place that wants to offer high quality service to its patients, will have to start examining and exploring all these elements and ancillary elements related to healthcare. Someone who might be a child who's getting abused in a home might also need a social worker's intervention. So then you have to collaborate with a social worker, and this is what has been unfolding in healthcare systems in US, where these collaborative practices are slowly unfolding, which is related to the awakening related to the healthcare system changes that have to unfold on earth next. And it is unfolding in US first because US government does invest a lot in healthcare research, healthcare work, and that's why it is unfolded first in US. But in other countries, if people are not putting their money in healthcare in the right way, or are translating practices that are old practices of 30 years back right now into their country, when in their country it is necessary to start inculcating some modern practices, then what is going to happen if you're continuing a practice that is old school and is not relevant to current status of patient's health on a particular place of earth? That place is not awakening to what needs to change, and it can be a particular hospital, it can be a particular doctor, it can be a particular system of governance of a country that is hindering the progress, it can be a particular mentality of the people who are not even educated as to what is the developed way of taking care of health, because people have either forgotten what is the developed way of taking care of health, or only pockets of people know what is a balanced way of taking care of health, and other pockets of people are completely misaligned with what is good health practice. So then you have to have a teacher also who has to educate first what is the right and balanced way of having a healthy life. You have to also redirect a mass scale of people, but you can redirect whom? Again, like when in a family, if 18 people are not ready to awaken and only 2 are able to awaken, and those 2, if let's say they were supposed to bring some changes in business, they have to go now and be somewhere where that information that they have awakened to is going to be valuable. Same way, if a person is awakened to healthcare practices and their healthcare practices related teachings or practical applications of it can't be executed in a place that is not ready to awaken to it, the changes needed for it or the multi-level changes that are needed for it, they can't practice there. They have to move to a place where those kind of changes are already begun or starting to begin or are already unfolding, so that they can do their next level of work they are meant to do. So this is how anyone who is currently awakening or has awakened to their higher purpose but is feeling a little lost about it has to understand that in that lost phase, or in your dark night of the soul, or in your tower moment phase, what is breaking down in your life is the thing that needs to break down, or the existential crisis that you're facing has to happen for you for the next level of your ascension journey. In order for that to unfold in your life, certain things have to break down. I had to literally go through a failure after failure in marriage or romantic relationships first, before I could understand where I'm going wrong in those practices. I had to also undergo minor scale, while my major failure were going on in my personal life, some minor scale failures were going on in my professional life, which were not really failures, but they were like redirection from the universe. So while I did pharmacy, that was necessary for me to do healthcare related work. So that pharmacy study went okay. Then when I did the masters, it was not completely necessary for me to get a PhD degree. That's why I didn't get that PhD degree. Instead, my career diverted into working as a pharmacist. When I worked as a pharmacist, again there were experiences in working as a pharmacist which is aligned with my soul purpose, and which are certain practices which are not aligned with my soul purpose. So when the things that were aligned with my soul purpose again unfolded, I went into studying different things related to pharmacy and also different things related to healthcare administration and business administration, all of which have now set me in a place to understand pharmacy, healthcare practice, business practice related to healthcare, as well as individual practices related to healthcare, about which I talk about in my different videos, because those are all part of my unfolding future life purpose. But there was a time for 8-10 years when I have not practiced any of these things in a professional setting, because at that time I was taking rest. I had personal life problems going on. I was initially doing the personal life challenges related sorting. Then I was doing the professional life. I'm right now also doing some professional life related sorting, meaning I have understood part of my purpose might be to speak about the changes that are necessary in these areas, because while I'm not functioning in any of these areas, I can do consulting work in some of these areas. I can also do some teaching work, or at least redirecting work for those people who are ready to understand that what they are practicing in their field is actually not aligned with the next century's human needs. And if people align to that, those who are going to align to that, be it in a spiritual practice, social practice, healthcare practice, mental health practice, social health practice, physical health practice, medical usage related practice, because all of these are in this century needing to shift and change and redirect a little bit more in alignment with what is truly necessary for the humans of a particular country. And every country or a city or a group of population has some population specific needs also they have to look into, as well as population, country, city specific changes people have to also make in order to actually align back towards better health. So, which is the part of awakening related to my personal awakening. But like that, everyone has to awaken. But while I am awakening to all these changes that are needed, there are people who are also going to be asleep about it, because if there are too many things that need to be changed and their family or society or country is not ready for those too many multi-layered changes, what is instead unfolding in those places when they, and it's not that they were not sent people to align them with better way of living. It's just that even though they were sent the right people, they were given the right resources, they were told or directed towards what really needs to change now, if people were not ready to awaken in those places, then some disaster, disease, long-term family illness, or chronic illnesses, or natural calamities, these are the things that are unfolding in those areas in order to awaken people slowly to what needs shifting and changing or realigning in their life. And for each individual it will be different, each country it might be different, each city it might be different, each continent it might be different, each group of people existing in a workplace it might be different. So everyone has some individual specific and group specific awakening they have to awaken to as we progress next in this century of earthly existence. And while some of us have to awaken, some people also awaken and ascend. And once we awaken to what needs changing and understand what needs changing, then after understanding, those who are ready for the change only can ascend to the next quality of better existence on earthly life. Whereas those who are fearful, those who are not ready to change, or those who are hesitant to make the changes, they might not be ready for ascension yet, but they have to still slowly start practicing step by step all the things necessary for them to ascend towards to the next phase of earthly existence. And those who are completely not able to awaken, something like the Kauravas, many Kauravas were not ready to awaken, some Pandavas were also not ready to awaken. Now that deeper elements of who was not ready to awaken might not have been written in the Mahabharata, but that was the overarching reason why a war was happening, where when multiple people are not ready to awaken to the next stage of changes that are required in that place or in that country, that's when mass scale war happens, so that those who are not ready to awaken, many of them will eventually die. Those who are partly awakened will eventually survive in order to bring forward the changes necessary for next stages of earthly existence. And some unawakened souls might still survive as well, depending on what was the karmic purpose for everyone's survival. So everything has a purpose, everything has a plan. God has a plan for everything that unfolds on earth. And it is while humans are given the free will to make their own free will choices, sometimes humans' free will choices only are the reasons why wars exist, deaths exist, rape of women exists, cruelty towards women and children exists, harm on earth exists. all of which are human created harm or power created, ego driven harm that occurs on earth. And when we are ready to admit that our ego, our power related thoughts or choices or our toxic way of leading life is leading to a harm in our life or someone else's life, once we awaken to that, then only can we awaken to changing that which we are also doing wrong. And initially when we awaken, people start first awakening to what others are doing wrong. That is true, and that awakening is needed, because if others are doing too many things that are harmful for our soul to thrive, then those people have to awaken to that, to first decide whether should I move from this job environment, should I move from this family life, should I move to a different country, should I start getting a divorce because what I'm doing with my spouse is not aligning with me anymore, and now the divorce is necessary so that I can take the time and break to understand what is it that I need in my life to feel safe in my life, to feel balanced in my life. And that's why divorces will unfold for someone, life crashes will unfold, job losses might unfold, job harassment might unfold, family harassment might unfold, abuse might unfold, to take you away from the situation which is toxic to you. Once you are able to remove yourself from that situation, then the next stage will come. What is the next thing I have to do? And that's where you might have to bring in God, you might have to bring in more self-reflection and self-awareness to understand where I am also going wrong. Because while they were like in the Mahabharata, how if Kauravas were 60% unawakened, Pandavas were 40% unawakened, same way in a conflict with some family or a work group or whatever was going on, if they were doing some major things, we are also doing some minor things wrong. That's why only we had been put together to have that experience. And while initially for us to move away from a toxic situation, we have to first view the wrong the other person is doing. Once we have moved away from that toxic situation, we have to also analyze on what we were doing wrong, or while we are trying to, if the toxic situation is not highly toxic, it is minorly toxic for us, then we have to sit and understand where can both people find a merged path to learn from each other, understand each other, have empathy for each other, to make the mildly conflict filled relationship or moderately conflict filled relationship workable again. So these are the things you have to do. When major conflict, major abuse is going on, you have to move away. Or when you don't have any other choice, only you have to still stay in sometimes in a conflict filled zone if you don't have better alternatives to move. But once you do have some better alternatives of choice or choices, then you have to understand why that you might have to do a deeper reflection on, is that the right choice? And after having access to that right choice or taking steps towards the right choice, if in those when you are going through a dark night of the soul or tower moment, you will have to do a lot of soul searching and soul purging and life crash or change related changes, where who you were 10 or 20 years back also is going to be very different from who you are now after the soul purge, soul searching, connecting to God and aligning to understanding more what is your higher purpose of existence on earth. So these are all going to be part of your awakening journey, and at that time you might feel I'm descending, but which is also true. You have to also, in order to ascend, you might have to descend first as well, to understand that what was the blockage to your ascension, or when you are descending, you might, if you are meant to be the teacher for other people, your descent is required for you to understand what are the places where all of us are descending, and where in order to ascend there, what are the changes required, what are the shifts required, what is the realignment required, what is the redirection required. Because you might be either a messenger of God, teacher of God, their guide, their friend who will help them take the next step, or if you are not going to be that, you are just meant to be the observer, so that via your observation the universe will then, and maybe if after observation you have prayed for them, universe will redirect and send the right resources for helping someone who is descending back into their journey of ascension. I hope this made sense. If anyone has any questions, would like any further exploration on any of these topics, please drop a comment. Thank you very much.